I had been staying at a motel while on a business trip in Mobile, Alabama. One day I decided to walk to Zaxby's for lunch. It was only a short distance across the street from the motel, near a pretty busy intersection. So as a young woman, I felt very secure doing that in the middle of the day. As I was just exiting the motel's parking lot, about to begin to cross the street, not in the crosswalk, I noticed an older-style rust orange-colored perhaps Chevy Chevelle, or maybe Oldsmobile Cutlass, pulled into the empty parking lot across the street, exactly where I would be heading if I stayed on my current trajectory. I remember thinking it was a weird place to park your car, because he had parked the vehicle only in the entrance of the empty lot, not in a parking spot. Then I noticed a tall, heavier-set man step out of the driver's seat and walk to the trunk, open the trunk, stand to the side of the open trunk, and just look at me as I'm getting closer and closing the distance between us. Every alarm bell is going off in my head as a really bizarre thing he is doing, but at this point I'm exactly halfway across the street, in the middle of the road, and I realize I'm going to have to be the asshole who very obviously changes her course to avoid walking any closer to this man. I decided I would take a chance of looking like an asshole and immediately U-turn my body back to the motel side of the street. During this time of changing my direction, this man gets back into his car and pulls across the street directly in front of me and into the entrance of the motel parking lot that I'm about to pass, and he looks straight at me with his window about 2 inches down. After seeing the way he's looking at me, I very quickly change directions yet again and quickly walk back across the street and make a beeline for Zaxby's. Anyone watching would have witnessed me zigzagging across the street 3 times if memory serves me correctly. Anyway, I didn't get kidnapped, but I think that was his intention, and that creeped me the hell out. It was the 1980s, and I was probably 11 or 12. We lived in a small town, and I was free to roam until the streetlights came on each night. One of my favorite places was the local drugstore. They had the best candy selection around. I swiped some change from the family coin jar and headed there on my roller skates. I had just bought them at a yard sale a few days before and had only taken them off to sleep since. I remember just being so happy on my way there. Roller skates and candy. I was living the dream. In front of the drugstore was a payphone. It stood alone on the corner of the street. I cruised into the parking lot and the phone started to ring. It wasn't that odd because I would regularly call my friends from it and give them the number listed on the phone to call me back, so we would be able to talk longer for free. I thought nothing of rolling over there to answer the phone. It wasn't one of my friends. The man that said hello back sounded raspy and old. He talked to me like you would talk to a small child. He told me he could see me and described exactly what I was wearing down to my white skates. I remember my heart being in my throat while I scanned the buildings around me. Just a few other businesses and a yellow 4-story apartment house on the corner down the street. I figured that is where he was. I was frozen in place as the man described all the sexual things he was going to do to me. I didn't know what most of the stuff was, and I don't remember what finally broke my shock, but when it did, I slammed the phone, bolted back to my house. It made me feel so dirty and scared. I never told my parents because I wasn't sure if it was my fault somehow. I stuck close to home a while after that. Fuck you to that old man that took away some of my fun and innocence as a little girl. I worked for a small office that consisted of only 5 employees. More often than not, between taking vacation or being out sick, I found myself being the only person working on Fridays or Mondays, more times than I can count. One afternoon, I walked down the hallway to go to the bathroom, and while I was in the bathroom, I could swear I heard what sounded like footsteps above my head. No one else was in the building at the time. It was a one-story building, so that would mean that someone was on the roof. I came out of the bathroom and walked through the building, but felt very uneasy because I could swear I heard something on the roof, but couldn't make out what it was. After that, it was quiet for the rest of the afternoon. On another occasion, I was in the kitchen area of the building, and again, I could swear that I heard what sounded like footsteps, not near the kitchen area itself, but somewhere down the hallway that led to the kitchen. Again, I walked around the building, alone, and didn't hear anything else the rest of the day. The time between these experiences was at least 4 months. On a couple of occasions, I asked my coworkers when they were in the building with me if they had ever heard anything strange. Oddly enough, each of them said that there were times when they thought they had heard strange activity on the roof, but couldn't make out what it was. Finally, one day I was in the kitchen cleaning my coffee mug, and out of nowhere I see this tall, slender young guy standing right outside the window looking very suspicious. I could see out, but he couldn't see in. He kept looking back and forth and paying special attention to the parking lot. At that moment, 2 of my coworkers were actually leaving, but my immediate supervisor was still in their office. After they proceeded to pull out of the parking lot, he literally turned around and flew right up the fire escape ladder to the roof. I didn't think it was humanly possible to go up a ladder as quickly as he did. I went to my supervisor's office and immediately told them what I had just seen. They decided to call the non-emergency police number, and 2 squad cars were immediately dispatched to our building. They proceeded to go up the ladder and found that this person had obviously been living on the roof. They had set up a hot plate, a tent, a laundry line, and had food stashed in numerous bags all over the roof. I was so creeped out when I realized that someone had actually been living on the roof that I actually felt sick to my stomach. A part of me felt bad for this person, but another part of me was really upset because I could have fallen victim to whatever could have happened if I had encountered this person. They left without incident, but to this day I refuse to work at any job where I'll be alone in a building. Some backstory. In the late 80s, I moved to a large city during my junior and senior year of high school. I grew up in a small rural town a couple hours away. I was living with my best friend. So she would pick me up after her shift, usually around 11 p.m. except on weekends. One night we stopped to get gas, and I was surprised to see a girl working from my hometown. I knew that Becky had a hard home life and basically raised her siblings. She was a quiet, shy person, but as sweet as could be. So we made it a habit to stop there and chat, have a cigarette, and hang out. Well, one night we stopped and there was a man sitting by the gas pump on a motorcycle, which was no big deal, except something about him just gave us a creepy vibe. Becky told us he had been there a while, so we stayed until he left. I was getting excited because I was going on vacation with some of my family the next day. We said our see you laters and we left. The second day I was gone, my friend called me crying. She told me Becky had been brutally murdered, and it was a man on the motorcycle that had done it. As the news reported, we found out that he had been in prison for years and recently gotten out. He told the police he didn't know how to live on the outside, so he wanted to do something to get a life sentence. After he did it, he went outside and sat on his motorcycle until an officer came by and noticed that he could not see an attendant at the station. He went in and found her in the bathroom. When he went back outside to radio it in, he asked the man how long he had been there and if he had seen anyone. The man replied, "I'm the one that did it." This happened about a year ago, and some things that have happened since sort of help to explain. I had just moved from Portland, Oregon to a suburb of Portland. The main reason being more space, less homeless people, and safer neighborhoods. One night, shortly after myself and my girlfriend had moved to our new home, we went out late at night, at 2 a.m. It was a weekend and we had been unboxing and arranging the house all day. Anyway, we went outside and sat at the curb by the street in front of our house. We did this because we were smoking a cig and it was a nice evening. There wasn't a street light directly where we were sitting, but some on the other side a couple of dozen of feet away. Point being, it was pretty dark in our exact location. Anyway, we're sitting there chatting about our home layout and blah blah blah, ripping away at our cigs. All of a sudden a car comes rolling down the street, very, very slowly. Pretty odd since it's a quiet neighborhood and 2 a.m., but whatever we thought. Well, we thought wrong. The car stops directly in front of us. We're a little weirded out at this point, and did I mention we've had a few drinks, so I was just expecting someone to roll down the window and ask for directions. No, not even close. A Hispanic man in his mid-40s, dressed very nicely but wearing an insane amount of gold chain, gets out. He doesn't say anything. He gets out and walks to the front of his car and sits on the hood. He grabs his cigarette and starts smoking while staring directly at us. At this point, my girlfriend and my cigs are done. Without causing any alarm, I whisper to her to walk inside and lock the door. I remain sitting and eventually standing but keeping eye contact with this man. She doesn't argue, which we normally would, because she is just like that. She goes inside and locks the door. After about 5 minutes, and with neither me or the guy saying anything at all, I walk to the door of my house and unlock it with my keys going in. I lock it immediately. I watch the guy from outside the window. He drives off soon after I go inside. Since then, sheriff deputies and court summoners have shown up at our house looking for the former tenant. Apparently he was a pretty bad dude. He was also wanted, and our address was the only address they had for him. My only theory is that the guy that night was looking for him too, and was surprised to see us and not him. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to like and subscribe for future content. If you want your story featured on an upcoming video, email my email in the description box below. And until we meet again, stay sinful.